So now we have to start our first law applied to open system but in unsteady flow. So already we have idea what is unsteady flow. Consider you have any pipe. In this pipe flow is happening, then at any section you have so many points in every section. So suppose here you have temperature 10 degrees Celsius. So with time this temperature will change. That's why it is unsteady flow. Steady flow is having a mathematical idea. Any property dou P by dou T will be 0. It means rate of change of any property with time is 0. Then you will say it is steady flow. If it is not 0, then it is unsteady flow. So rate of change of any property with respect to time is 0 means the property is not changing with time. Means property is constant, and if you know whenever you differentiate the constant you get 0. That's why if your property is constant with time, then differentiation should be 0, and if it is not 0, then it is unsteady flow. So right now we are going to apply our first law in unsteady flow. So it is very easy. In an unsteady flow, the properties at any point in the control volume varies with time. So first of all we have to discuss our control volume. Suppose you have this kind of system. In this system, from here flow is entering. So I am considering a small mass dm1 is entering, and because it is unsteady flow, so I am considering our mass will change, dm2. I am also considering some amount of heat is entering, so that I am saying del q amount of heat is entering. Because of that I am considering I am getting some work done, and we have to show the control volume. So I am considering this much is my control volume, and this section you will say section 1, this section you will say section 2. So what we have to do? Always one thing, just balance the energy equation, that's all. I mean all the energies you have to balance. So see, you just consider dE. This dE I am going to say very small energy, which is the total energy associated with the mass transfer, and dECV, another property. I will consider this is the energy which is changing in the control volume. This dE is the energy which is associated with the mass transfer, but this dE is the energy which is changing in the control volume, because you know properties will change in the control volume. So how much energy will change in the control volume? I am considering this much. It means if you are supplying heat here, then from this side also some mass is going, so this much is energy which is associated with the mass. So you have total two energies which is input. One is here and one is here. So the input energy, if you want to write, you will write like this: the heat plus dE at 1, and then whatever is output. So with dm2 mass, dE2 energy will be output, and this work done will be output, plus some energy is changing in the control volume. So that energy also you should write, that dE is changing in the control volume. So this became your basic equation. Like see, other than this you don't have any energy. Now we know that total energy which enters at any inlet we consider as kinetic energy, potential energy, and enthalpy. That's all. It means what? Here dE1 is entering. It means if I want to find out the total energy which is entering with dE, the dE is nothing but the kinetic energy, means the small mass dm1, like half mv square. So v1 square, plus the potential energy, the small mass dm1, gz1 square, plus the enthalpy, so dm1 into h1. Okay, so these are the energies are equal to dE1. It means what? This dE1 value I got this much. So because already we have discussed, whenever there is a flow at the inlet, you have three types of possible energies: kinetic energy, gravitational potential energy, and enthalpy. Other than that, we don't have. If you have anything else, that is going to be heat. Same thing happens at the exit. But at the exit, you have one extra energy this time. Because this energy is not at the exit, at the inlet. This is the change in energy in the control volume. Okay. So in same way, we can write this 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, then it will be dE2. It means we got this value also. Now our job is to substitute all the values one by one in the formula. And one more thing, we have this dECV. So if you substitute your CV, 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 then this will be giving you value CV. I mean, your dE is entering some, because of some change of dE, we are getting a new dE. So what is dE? dE depends on three types of energy. So I'm only changing the variables and I'm getting the value of dE1, dE2 and dECV. Then what is our job? Our job is to write them in a proper way. So how can I write them? I can say that del Q, and I can take the work left side. Let him join. Okay, we'll start now. So understand the logic again. From here energy is entering. That energy I am saying as dE1. This dE1 is the total energy associated with dm1 mass. And energy which is going out, that is dE2. This is the total energy associated with the dm2 mass. Always keep in mind, your total energy, if you divide by the mass, you get specific energy. And I have already taught you that specific energy will always go for a smaller alphabet and total goes for capital alphabet. It means if I will divide this energy dE1 by the mass, then I will write here a small energy. This is going to be specific energy. Okay. So you see, if I'll write the complete equation, then I will write dE1 is my total equation, total energy plus the supplied heat in this direction. That is giving me this side some energy and some work done and some change in energy. So for that I am writing equation dE2 plus our work done plus I can write dE which is being changed in control volume. So this energy and this energy, these three energies are nothing but the sum of kinetic energy plus potential energy plus enthalpy. So if you'll put here 1, 1, 1, then it will be dE1. If you'll put here 2, 2, 2, then it will be dE2. If you put here CV, 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 then it will be dECV. Okay. So what will I do? I will take all the E terms one side and heat transfer and work transfer one side. So for that I can write my equation as del Q minus del W is equal to dE, which is being changed in CV, control volume, plus I can write dE2, which is being changed at the, no, this is not the change, this is at the exit. Then put minus dE1. Now I am going to replace all the energies in their specific term. So this dE2 is nothing but mass into specific energy. So that and one thing, very important thing, This is unsteady flow. It means properties, if you will differentiate with time, they will not be zero, right? And one more thing, whenever any property is being changed, then it will take some time, correct? So I am considering that time is t, like very small time dt I will differentiate for this time t. So I can write the equation in terms of differentiated equation. Then I can write dq by dt minus del w by del dt is equal to de cv by dt plus this and this I want to break in terms of mass. So what will I do? dm2 into e2 divided by dt minus dm1 into e1 divided by dt. You may have doubt how can I write this part. Just now I have explained total energy is nothing but mass into specific energy, and in the beginning itself I have considered my mass is dm1 dm2, so that's why I am writing that. Okay, now this energy equation is known as unsteady flow system, energy equation for unsteady flow system. Flow is there, yes. Is it unsteady? Yes. Is it happening for a particular time? Yes. So can we do something else with the equation? What can we do? We can integrate this equation. Suppose the process started at time t1 and we are analyzing the process till time t2. So we will go for the differentiation because we have to summarize all the term. Like this much energy is being transferred in this small dt time. So I want to count all the energy. So I will write dq by dt into dt. Now this term is giving me total heat transfer in this much time, and I am counting from this. Then again I'll put minus sign, then I'll put from t1 time to t2 time, and then again dw by dt. No need to write, I'll directly give you PDF. From the PDF you can make notes. Here you just understand. Then here also I'll put dt, and then I'll put one integration here, then dt, one integration here, then dt, integration here, then dt with limits, proper limits, t1 t2 t1 t2. So now what equation you are getting after substituting the integration form, this you will say as unsteady state unsteady flow energy equation. So see, unsteady state unsteady flow energy equation, USS USF EE. So in short we say like this. So this entire thing what you are writing, this you can call as the first law expression for unsteady flow. Now we will be using this equation to find out some process. See, when we have a steady flow system, that time we will operate from 0 time to t time in case of a steady flow system. Then always remember, whenever there is a heat, that symbol is Q. But in real life right now heat is flowing, so whenever there is a heat flow, then we'll put Q dot. In same way, whenever there is a mass, then we write M. But whenever the mass is flowing, then we write m dot. M dot means kg per second. It means this much kg mass is flowing per second. So symbol we put m dot. Whenever we have W and whenever we have W dot. W dot means okay, work is happening per second. Here heat is flowing per second. That is the meaning. Always remember, whenever you have heat per second, that is nothing but joule per second. So it means that is WATT. Watt. Watt is the unit of power. It means W by time will give you power. In same way, heat by time will also give you power, because this is also joule per second. Okay. Now we have to consider that whatever mass is entering, like dm 1 by dt, it is going to be equal to dm2 by dt. So all these masses we will consider as constant term. So our equation will reduce and it will take a form. So our final equation we can write in this way. Q dot means heat transfer, will give you work transfer. But dot and dot is here, it means we are talking about the power now. Because dot means Q by time. It means heat flow rate we are talking now. So how much heat you are supplying, because of that how much work you are getting. And then the final answer, how much m dot is there. Then change in enthalpy H2 minus H1. plus change in kinetic energy plus change in potential energy. I understand we are playing with the equation. So right now you may not get the interest, but when we will take the numerical, you will understand. Okay. Now try to understand. This is your energy equation. Now we'll understand mass balance equation. It means in the system, if you are sending some mass, that mass is dm1, and mass is coming out, that is dm2, and some mass is changing in the control volume. So your dm1 mass is changing with time. So whatever change is here, according to that only you should get dm2 by dt plus dm control volume by dt. So this equation is known as mass balance equation, because we are balancing our mass. And again, if you have a steady flow, in that case whatever mass is entering, same mass will go out. It means what? M dot 1 at the inlet is going to be M dot 2. But in unsteady flow, they are not equal. So now we'll see some kind of equations, some kind of questions. In those questions, we will try to understand how to apply this thing. There is something called tank filling process. Let's understand what is tank filling process. Tank filling process. It is important. What is this? Suppose there is a pipe. In the pipe, flow is happening. So suppose some m kg mass you have, and this m kg mass is traveling in the pipe. But you made a hole here. Then from this hole, some mass is entering. And using this pipe, we have some throttle here or valve here, and we are filling a tank. So this is our tank. Okay. So m kg mass was going in this direction, but some portion of the mass now will turn in this direction, and it will go through the valve. So when the mass will enter in the chamber, then in the chamber, in the beginning, you had less pressure and less temperature. But because some mass is entering and this tank is rigid, size cannot increase, size cannot decrease. It is rigid tank. So because of extra mass, your temperature and pressure will increase. So suppose earlier pressure was P1 and now pressure became P final, initial final, and temperature was initial, and after the mass is entering, it became T final. So we have to understand equation in this way. There is something called MI. MI means initial mass in the cylinder. Like when the cylinder was, when extra mass was not coming that time. So initial mass. So you can consider it was 0 when cylinder was empty. It means this flow did not start that time. Initial mass was 0 when cylinder was empty. Then we go for final mass. And of course, final mass means when the mass entered here that time. So of course your final mass is going to be more than your initial mass. And there is something M. What is the M? M is that mass which is going into the cylinder from pipe. It means initial mass was Mi, final mass was Mf. If you will subtract that, then you will be getting mass which is coming in the pipe. So that mass M is here. Now we have to write all the equations in terms of energy equation. Then only we can achieve some equation, and then we can solve any question. See, we got all the masses, 3 masses. So heat supply, if you do, you get subtract work, and after that you have change in internal energy in the control volume, and you have, because of the final mass, you have final final energy and initial mass energy. These three terms you know very well. But here one mistake. That mistake is it should be minus. Okay. Now see, we are considering our M1 is equal to M, and our outflow is 0, and there is no work involved in the tank filling process. It means your heat supply will be equal to only this and this. So we can write change in energy in the control volume minus mass into E1. Okay, now we have to understand this part. What is change in energy in the control volume? That is nothing but mass final, you see what I'm writing, and mass initial. And one more thing, whenever you multiply mass with velocity, what kind of equation you get, which property you get, can you recall? Whenever you multiply mass with velocity, any idea? No, whenever you multiply mass with velocity, this is known as momentum. Okay, so we are going to have a final equation. After substituting values here, this I will be getting my Q is equal to M final U final minus M initial U initial minus M final minus M initial bracket HS plus CS square by 2. Actually proof is not important, but little bit discussion should be there so that when I'll send you the PDF you can analyze remaining things. So this is the formula we use for tank filling process whenever tank is being filled. Okay, now I will give one question so that you can be comfortable with this equation. And whenever there is like you are evacuating the tank, that time what to do? So whenever you are evacuating the tank, so you are taking the mass out. So this evacuation is of two types. This can happen either at adiabatic condition or this can happen at isothermal condition. In both the cases you have your situation. In case of adiabatic, your heat transfer is 0, so your final temperature will be gamma times of the initial temperature. And your in case of isothermal process, your heat is not 0, so your heat supply will be equal to mass into, you can write like this, CV because constant volume, then T final minus Cp, then T initial. So this formula you have to remember, and we will take one question and that question will be easy after that. How to tackle this question? I will take one question, just wait. Pipe discharge into atmosphere. Okay, we can take this question. See, there is a cylinder. In this cylinder, volume is given as 3 meter cube. And in this volume, we are talking about CO2 gas inside the cylinder. An insulated rigid CO2 cylinder of 3 meter cube volume is initially at pressure of 16 bar. Initially P1 was 16 bar and temperature T1 was 42 degrees Celsius initially. As the gas slowly leaks to the atmosphere, it means here you have some hole, through that hole gas is leaking outside. Its pressure finally becomes 10 bar. So pressure will reduce and pressure becomes 10 bar. And okay, we have to know, find the mass of the gas leaked and change in the internal energy of the gas. How much mass is leaking out when pressure was remaining this much? Earlier when pressure was 16 bar, you had some mass inside. Now it is leaking and new pressure became 10 bar after the leakage. Then how much mass leaked out? And we have to know change in internal energy. So we can do. So see how can we do. Your volume will be constant. So V1 is equal to V2 because it is rigid. But your P1 and P2, they are not same. And of course you have your T1 value that is this much. If you add 42 plus 273, then it will convert to Kelvin, so that will be 315 Kelvin. Okay, you should also find one more thing that will come in future. Cv is equal to R by gamma minus 1. This you know. So R value for CO2 gas and gamma value for CO2 gas. Keep in mind, gamma CO2 is triatomic gas. So R value, first you find out this R value. How will you find out? R universal by molar mass, and gamma value for triatomic gas you should know 1.33 minus 1. And if you should know the molar mass of the CO2, that is 44. So you will substitute RU value also 8.314. Everything we have discussed here. So CV value will come as 0.573 kilojoule per kg Kelvin. So after getting this C value, then we can approach the numerical. Now see, in the question itself, it is mentioned that tank is insulated. Insulated means heat cannot enter, heat cannot go out. So you have to consider adiabatic. So you have adiabatic relations also, like T2 by T1 is equal to P2 by P1 whole power gamma minus 1 by gamma. Okay, so substitute P1 here, P2 here, T1 here. I mean P2 here, P1 here, T1 here, and you find out T2 value. So once you got your T2 value, then you do one thing. You use equation of state. PV is equal to MRT is your equation. This equation you write in two ways. You write P1 V1 is equal to M1 R T1, and then you write P2 V2 is equal to M2 R T2. Now you see, in case 1, you know P1, you know T1, volume is directly given, R just now we have got, and find out your M1. So M1 will come as 80.644. In same way, P2 is given, T2 is given. For the second condition, V2 is same as V1. R just you find out your M2. M2 will come as 56.62. So this was the remaining mass inside. So how much mass is leaked out? You can see the difference here. Difference is of 24.021 kg. This much mass is leaked out. And how will you find out your change in internal energy? So that change in internal energy is nothing but your M2U2 minus M1U1. That here U1 and U2 is your internal energy. Internal energy. How will you write internal energy? Internal energy is nothing but CV into T. CV is specific heat at constant volume, T is the temperature. So if you want to find out U2, put here 2. If you want to find U1, put here 1. I mean T1 and T2. So this equation you can replace as M2 CV T2 minus M1 CV T1, and substitute all the given data here, and you will be getting minus 5460.29 kilojoule. Try to understand this negative sign. This negative is sign saying that your internal energy decreased. Earlier you had more gas, now you have less gas, so of course your internal energy will decrease, because we are finding out change in internal energy. So like this we have 3-4 more examples. I will send you the PDF. So now we are done with the unsteady flow. Unsteady flow is very easy. It is very similar to the like steady flow. Now we are ready to discuss second law of thermodynamics. See, we have covered long journey. Now it is kind of like second law. So now see, when you are doing second law, first you should know it's not like law. Like in zeroth law you have law, in first law you have law. In second law you cannot say that you have a particular law. Mainly second law is nothing but the combination of two statements. Can you recall that name? What are those two statements what we discuss under second law? Can you recall? Okay, good try. Actually, under second law, we discussed two types of statements. One is Kelvin-Planck statement and one is Clausius statements. Only these two statements we have to work in case of second law. So first question is, why there is need of second law? Because if you know second law will help you to understand the grade of energy, which energy is high grade, which energy is low grade. If you know the second law, it means you can judge energy will flow from this side to this side or this side to this side. Like there are so many some historical facts. I will send you the PDF. You will understand. Okay, these are the main features of why we are going to study the second law. So we are not working on the why. We are going to work what is second law. So to understand second law, let's understand what is called heat reservoir. So see, if you have any heat reservoir, before going to understand second law, I am teaching you what is called heat reservoir. If you supply any heat to the heat reservoir, because it is reservoir, so the temperature will not increase. In same way, if you are taking the heat out, then because it is reservoir, so temperature will not decrease as well. So no change in temperature when there is a transfer of heat. Then you will say that thing as heat reservoir. Basically, they are of two types. One is sink, one is source. So source means heat source. From where heat will come out. Sink means heat sink, in which you have to dump your heat. It's like you have one kind of source here, which is I am saying as heat reservoir. So from it will be at particular temperature. From that some heat will come. So that heat I will show as Q1. Then suppose you have another kind of sink. This is also reservoir. It means in this, if you will put some kind of heat, then your temperature will not be changing. It will be T2 only. So we got 4 variables here. Now based on these 4 variables, we will design some machines. Like heat engine is very popular machine. So what is heat engine? Heat engine is a device that operates on thermodynamic cycle. Why do we use heat engine? By using heat engine, we convert heat into work. Heat into work. And we get positive work. We supply heat, but we get work. Whatever heat you supply according to that. And for example, what are the examples of heat engine? Internal combustion engine like petrol engine, diesel engine. They are actually examples of heat engine. They contains combustion chamber. In that combustion chamber, we burn the fuel. That fuel produces continuously produces heat. And then where do you dump the heat? Guys, in our petrol engine and diesel engine, we have a chamber. In that chamber, we burn the heat. Continuously we supply the fuel and continuously heat will be there. So it will behave like a reservoir, but we dump the heat somewhere. Where do we dump the heat? That is my question. Can you try? My question is, suppose we have any diesel engine or petrol engine. In that combustion is happening and we are producing heat. So that particular system will behave like a source of heat. And then that heat will go somewhere and it will produce the work, and some amount of heat I will dump somewhere. So where do we dump this heat in real life? Any guesses? Actually, we dump the heat in atmosphere. That's all. That's why global warming is increasing. Yeah. So see now. Actually, what is heat engine? You will be having any engine which will produce the heat. If the engine is producing heat, then you should put clockwise cycle. But to produce this, sorry, I think I said wrong. Heat engine will not produce heat, it will produce work. So heat engine is a device. It is a mechanical device which will produce work. Why you should mention mechanical device? Because there are so many devices, they are electrical devices. So you'll be getting work. But to get this work, you should have the inlet of the heat. I mean, you should input some amount of heat. So from where you will get the heat? You'll get the heat from the source. And what is source? Source should be reservoir. So it should be maintained at T1 temperature. Then you'll be getting Q1 heat. Then you'll be producing work. And some heat you will dump to the atmosphere. Atmosphere means you can say second reservoir, it's sink. This is also reservoir, so it will be having temperature T2. Understand the idea. You are supplying Q1, you are producing work, and then remaining heat you are dumping into the sink, because all the heat cannot convert into work. All the heat will convert into work. It is not possible. No, it is not possible. So you can see here Q1 heat is actually producing work done, and remaining is going to the sink. It means whatever work done you are producing, that is nothing but Q1 minus Q2. So if you want to understand the heat engine, then you should understand actually heat engine is the body with three things. One is source, one is engine, I mean the chamber in which we are producing the work, and one is sink. And if you want to find out efficiency of heat engine, how can you find out efficiency of heat engine? So to find out efficiency of any heat engine, you have, okay, you forget about efficiency of engine, you talk about efficiency of anything. Efficiency of anything in the world. So efficiency of anything we always give like output power by input power. I will change the page, keep in mind. Output power by input power gives you efficiency every time. But here in heat engine, how will you know what is your power? Source is giving you heat. Is it power? No. Then you have engine is producing work. Is it power? No. Then again heat is going to the sink. Is it power? No. Then how will you find out efficiency? Okay, so for that you understand one more idea. The heat what is being produced, it is not producing at a time. It is actually continuous process. Heat is continuously coming out of the engine. Heat is continuously coming out of the engine. It means you just imagine that for every second, actually this heat is being transferred every second. This work is being transferred every second. This heat is also being transferred every second. It means suppose I am writing A by T divided by B by T, then TT will get cancelled. So because both the times are same, I am trying to connect joule per second gives you power, and joule per second again gives you power. If you are dealing the joule for the same time, then second you can cancel. So joule you can kept. So your efficiency, if you are writing as output power divided by input power, then this output power you can write as, now you have to understand what is your output. In case of heat engine, what is your output? What do you want? That is your output. You want work, so work is your output. To generate this work, what you are supplying? Q1 you are supplying, so Q1 is your input. So this work I can write in terms of Q1 and Q2, so that is Q1 minus Q2. This Q1 I will just write as it is. So you can cancel this. So 1 minus Q2 by Q1. So this became your basic equation for the efficiency of heat engine. Now let's understand another device, heat pump. What is heat pump? Heat engine is clear, guys, how I'm getting efficiency of heat engine? Okay, now we go for heat pump. Heat pump is another device. Actually, see why I'm taking heat engine and heat pump in the beginning, so that you like in future I can tell you these applications with the help of second law. Now we'll go for heat pump. Let's understand what is heat pump. So heat pump, by the name itself you see, a pump which is going to produce heat. It means heat pump is a thermal cyclic device to maintain a body or anything, any space at a particular temperature, or you can say at higher temperature, like in cold days like winters, we need hot room. So from where you will get the heat? Everywhere you have same temperature, outside, inside. How will you get the heat? So you have two options. Either you start your LPG and you get the flame. With the flame, whatever things you have in your house, door, wood, everything, cloths, money, you burn, and then you feel comfortable. But you cannot do this. You cannot switch on your LPG and you cannot burn your clothes and money. what will you reply to your parents? So what will you do? In the heat pump, this heat pump is the solution. So heat pump is a thermal cyclic device. Cyclic means it is continuously happening. So it will maintain higher temperature, but how? So see, I am saying this is my engine and it is heat pump. So I will write heat pump here. So what is the role of heat pump? Heat pump accepts work, and this time because you are supplying the work, so it should be anti-clockwise symbol, and you will be getting some kind of heat, Q1. Okay, now this Q1 will make your room or your house at more temperature, T1. So you can say the body temperature. So one more thing, you have to deliver some amount of heat, Q2. At least some amount of heat should be there. So this you will be also getting from some kind of lower temperature. One thing which we are sure, this side is our atmosphere, and from atmosphere whatever heat is available, you are sucking the heat and then you are adding some amount of work done, and both you are converting into a new heat. This heat you are sending to the room, and room is maintaining a temperature T1. So here again you have to think about the efficiency. So question is the efficiency correct word for heat engine? No. In case of heat engine, the same efficiency word we use as COP, coefficient of performance of heat pump. So we don't say efficiency, we say coefficient of performance. So how do you write coefficient of performance? So coefficient of performance in case of heat pump is nothing but, again the same concept, what is your output and what is your input. What do you want? Hot room you want, so Q1 is your output. What is your input? To do so you are supplying work, so Q1 by W is your input. Again you can see here how many people are coming, W and Q2, these two together, they are entering into the engine, and engine is giving you Q1. So again you got almost same equation. Okay, so W is equal to Q1 minus Q2. So this time you can replace Q1 divided by Q1 minus Q2. And one more thing you can do, you can change this to divide by Q1. So 1 by 1 minus Q2 by Q1. So this is your equation for the coefficient of performance. Always keep in mind, heat pump is not having efficiency. The same thing we call as coefficient of performance. Now let's understand what is refrigerator. Okay. Actually see, you know that if you have any object, in the object if you supply heat, then only temperature will increase. And we are designing a heat pump. What is the role of the heat pump? Heat pump will supply heat to your room so that you can get the high temperature. It means if this is your room, so in this room you should supply heat, then only you can increase the temperature. So that is the Q1. Q1 is the heat which is required, which you want to heat up your room. And to develop this heat, you need some heat, correct? So that heat is Q2 coming from atmosphere. Okay, and to run the device, you need work done. So this work done can be electrical work done. By using any electrical work done, you can run your heat pump. Nowadays, you have geyser. In the geyser, you are supplying electrical work. Geyser is giving you hot water. There are so many types of hot cooler, hot air cooler. So it is similar. Okay. Now see, you got the COP for the heat pump. Now we'll understand refrigerator part. What is refrigerator? Very easy device. Now refrigerator is very common. It is kind of opposite of the heat pump. Okay, heat pump means you are trying to make something hot. Refrigerator means you are trying to make something cool. So how will you work here? Suppose this is a engine. This engine you will call as refrigerator. what is the role of refrigerator? Suppose this is your object, and this object you want to make cooler, more cooler. You want to cool this. Okay. So what is basic idea to cool anything? You should take the heat away from the object. So suppose Q2 heat you are taking away from the object so that it will maintain T2 temperature, which is lower temperature. Okay. So to run this refrigerator, you have to put some work. It can be electrical work or anything. Again, keep in mind, you are again supplying work, so anti-clockwise cycle you should show. And then because they both are input in the cycle, so you will be getting final heat output. So this heat output, where will you eject? In the atmosphere. So you can see in the behind of the fridge, you have hot kind of thing, right? You can feel the heat. If you will check any refrigerator in your canteen, in your house, back side of the refrigerator, you will be having heat. From where the heat is coming? This is the heat. Q1. You put here Q1. So this is going to be a high temperature body. So you are maintaining temperature T1. Now in this case, again you are going to discuss coefficient of performance of the refrigerator. So coefficient of performance of any device or efficiency of any device. How do you find out? Output by input. Output by input. Can you judge what is your output and input? See, you have three things: Q1, Q2 and W. Out of these three, any one is output, any one is input. Tell me, in case of refrigerator, what is output, what is input? Try. No. Q2 is the thing what we want. It is our desired thing. So like this much output you should have. Q2 is our output, and to achieve this output you have to supply this much input. Okay, imagine the same diagram is your heat pump and same diagram is your refrigerator. So try to understand what is your desire in case of heat pump. That is the output of the machine. What is your desire in case of refrigerator? That is your output. To achieve this desire, you have to supply some work done. So work done is always your input in both the cases, heat pump and refrigerator. Work done is input. Now, what is your desire in your heat pump? Desire is you have to get more temperature. It means what? You have to supply some heat. So this is your output, this is your result. So Q1 became your output. But if you will talk about refrigerator, then you have to cool down something. It means you should take the heat out. It means this is your final output. This effect is your output effect. That's why Q2 is your output. So your coefficient of performance is nothing but Q2 divided by work done. And again you can check, you are getting finally same equation. W in Q2 in Q1 out. So Q1 is nothing but Q2 plus W. So W is nothing but Q1 minus Q2. So Q2 divided by Q1 minus Q2. Right? Guys, clear? Okay. Okay, if you have doubt, you can ask again. Okay, now see, you divide the entire equation by q2, you will be getting 1 by q1 by q2 minus 1. Okay, now you have very interesting point. Same device, from one place it is taking the heat and one place it is supplying the heat. So in the winter season, you can consider this as heat pump. In summer season, you can consider this as refrigerator. It means same device can behave like both. So the rate of heat absorption should be here, and rate of heat emitting should be here. I will change the page, I have to explain something. See, actually coefficient of performance for the refrigerator is less. So coefficient of performance for the heat pump, if you subtract 1, then it is balanced. How will you understand this? Coefficient of performance for the refrigerator, just now we have achieved q2 by q1 minus q2, and if you work out in somehow, suppose you add 1 and subtract 1, then combine these two, then this will convert your equation into q1 by q1 minus q2. So this became your heat pump minus 1. So coefficient of pressure for the refrigerator is less than the heat pump. This question they may ask in your exam. Now after understanding these three machines, what you should keep in mind? Actually totally we have discussed 4 machines. 4 or 3? I think 3 machines. Heat engine, heat pump and refrigerator. So in case of heat engine, you have one difference. What is the difference? The work is your output. I mean, you want to achieve the work. But in case of heat pump and refrigerator, you are supplying the work. So see now. These 3 devices over. We are going to discuss second law of thermodynamics. So there are 2 classical statements for the second law of thermodynamics. They are known as Kelvin-Planck statement and Celsius statement. So one by one we will take both. So first let's understand what is Kelvin-Planck statement. In short you say KPS. And then I will teach you Clausius statements. So first understand what is Kelvin-Planck and then Clausius. See, Kelvin-Planck says it is impossible to construct a cyclic device which will produce no effect other than transfer of heat from single heat reservoir and do an equivalent amount of work. Means you can never produce a device which will take some amount of heat and will give you equivalent amount of work done. It is impossible to construct any cyclic device. Cyclic, why are you saying cyclic? Because continuously you are supplying the heat and continuously you are getting the work. That's a cyclic. It states that it is impossible to design such a cyclic device which will produce no other effect, but it will only produce it will only produce work by using single reservoir. Just now we saw our heat pump, heat engine, refrigerator. In both we had two reservoirs. One reservoir was at high temperature, one was at low temperature. But that's why we have two temperatures, two reservoirs. That's why it is valid. But KPS is warning you now. KPS is saying you can never generate a device in which you have only one reservoir, and in that also the entire heat is you are trying to convert into work. It is impossible. Try to understand KPS one more time. KPS states that it is impossible to construct a cyclic device which will produce no effect other than heat transfer from a single reservoir to do an equivalent amount of work. Okay. It means what? Whenever the reality is, whenever you supply heat, you get the work, but definitely some heat will go to sink. It means you need two reservoir. From one reservoir you will receive the heat, and to one reservoir you will give the heat as a sink. Okay. It means what? But suppose somehow if you are able to make this device, such devices. So first thing, you can never, but if you are able to make that, then we call them as PMM2. So now let's understand what is PM2. So KPS is saying there is no heat engine which will work only with one heat reservoir and will produce equivalent work. If any device receives only heat transfer from one single reservoir and it is producing work done, then it is known as PMM2, perpetual motion machine of second type. Okay. So understand the difference between PMM1 PMM2. PMM1 is a device in which without supplying anything it will produce heat. Sorry, it will produce work. Without supplying anything it will produce heat. But PMM2 is a different thing. In PMM2 concept is, if you are supplying heat from a single reservoir, you are producing work, okay, fine, no problem. But this thing will happen if and only have one more extra reservoir that we'll use as a sink. If you are not providing this phenomena, then this is not possible. By using single reservoir, you are supplying the heat and you are converting that into the work. It means this is PMM2, perpetual motion machine of second type. Okay. Because see, if you are thinking this kind of machine is possible in future, then your efficiency is going to be 100%, because entire heat you are converting into work. So this thing is your output, this thing is your input. So work by heat, right, is going to be your efficiency. Why efficiency? Because your output and input. So output is work, input is this thing. Efficiency is 100%, because they both are equal. And if efficiency is 100%, that's all. It is magical one. Humans cannot produce something which is 100% efficient. Till at least whatever we know till now. In future what will happen, who knows. So we are going to discuss now Clausius statement. So Kelvin-Planck statement is about one reservoir from which you are taking the heat out. That heat you are trying to convert into work, which is not possible without the help of second reservoir. Now let's see Clausius statement. Clausius statement is somewhat interesting. Clausius statement says, it is impossible to construct a cyclic device to transform heat from a low temperature body to high temperature body without the use of external work. Suppose you have any object, this is at low temperature, and there is any object, this is at high temperature. So you want to design a machine which will take the heat from low temperature to high temperature. Is it possible? Can you take your heat from low temperature to high temperature? Can it happen automatically? No. That's what they are saying. It is impossible to construct any cyclic device, this is my cyclic device, to transfer heat from low temperature body to a high temperature body. And if you want to do this, then you must supply some external work. Without the supplement of external work, if you are trying to do, no, you can never. So Clausius statement states that it is impossible to construct a cyclic device which will take the heat from low temperature body and it will supply to high temperature body, but without taking any external help from the external agent, or you can see external work. Guys, clear? Yeah, you have refrigerator. Refrigerator is one example where you are sending heat from the colder object to the hotter atmosphere, but there you are supplying electrical work. Without supply electrical work, you cannot do this. Now, actually, you understood that in second law we have to study our Kelvin-Planck statement and our Clausius statement, and if you understand them in one more way, then they both are saying the same thing. How they both are saying the same thing? Right now examples are different, but how are they equivalent? Are they saying the same thing? So yes, they are saying the same thing, but how are they saying same thing? But actually it seems they are entirely different. This guy is talking about engine work done produce, this guy is talking about the heat sending item. So let's understand how they are saying the same thing, how they have equivalent sense. So let's understand. So first thing, keep in mind, they are equivalent statements, and now we will prove this, how they are saying the same thing. So see, we are going to prove this. So let's understand. You have a big reservoir here. Here also you have a big reservoir. I am considering this is sink. Sink means I am considering low temperature T1, T2, and here I am considering high temperature. So T2, T1. Okay, let's understand. You are keeping here one engine. You are keeping here one heat pump. So in engine you generate the work, but in heat pump you supply the work. When you are dealing with the heat engine, then you ask for the heat from the high temperature. Okay, and you will put clockwise sign because you are getting the work. But if you are dealing with heat pump, then you will supply the work and it will be anti-clockwise line, and from here you will take the heat Q2, and this heat you will supply here as Q1. So according to this and this, if you can check what is the output here, the output is nothing but your this Q1 is nothing but Q2 plus W, right? Now you understand, if both the machines you will use together, then what will happen? Here I am going to add one more machine. That machine I am going to say as some machine D. Okay, this is the device which is going to violate KPS. KPS means Kelvin-Planck constant. Okay, Kelvin-Planck statement. And this is the device which is possible heat pump. This heat pump is possible because it is taking the work done. Okay, this device is taking heat here Q2 and sending heat here Q2. This device is obtained by coupling the device this one and the device this one. How are you going to couple both? When you will couple both, what will happen? Check. Q1 is coming, Q2 is going, and Q1 is going, and W is also incoming. So from this device you are supplying the W. This W you insert in this device. From this device Q1 is coming, from this device Q2 is coming and going Q1. Okay, here you check your Q1 is equal to W. Here you check your Q1 is equal to Q2 plus W. Right now they looks entirely different devices. You just do one thing. I am going to give you equivalent of this, a device which is taking Q2 and sending Q2. Now you think, if I am coupling these two devices, how can I get this effect? Try. How can I get this effect? Okay, I'll explain. See, device D will receive heat and it will do some amount of equivalent work. So it is receiving heat, it is doing the work. And hence this work is equal to Q1. Clear? Now let's consider a possible heat pump which I am drawing here. And now the heat pump requires some amount of work to produce the heat Q1. Okay. Then imagine a new device we can frame by coupling both devices. I mean this device and the heat pump. Because we have to transfer Q2 from lower temperature to high temperature T1 without the use of any external assistant, which is impossible according to Clausius law, Clausius statement. Try to understand how we are getting the third diagram. We are going to couple both. Guys, is it difficult to understand this? Okay. So see, I will change the page. See now. What is the main idea behind this? Main idea is Kelvin-Planck statement and Clausius statement. They both are equivalents for each other. Okay. Now we will discuss Carnot cycle. Carnot cycle is very easy. First of all, you should know what are the possible. First of all, have some theory about Carnot cycle. Actually, Carnot cycle is a cycle which will give you maximum efficiency. What is maximum efficiency? Sometimes students may think that Carnot cycle will give you 100% efficiency. No. So Carnot cycle is a heat engine which will give you maximum efficiency. So the scientist name was Sadi Carnot, if I'm not wrong, Sadi Carnot. And this was, he was engineer from French. So he proposed a reversible heat engine. What is reversible heat engine? When something is reversible, then you can say there is no friction involved in that. There is no losses. So it is designed to operate reversibly on thermodynamic cycle. So in this cycle, see guys, what is cycle? If you go to the basic of thermodynamics, if you have a state, you combine the state, you will be getting process. And if you have so many process, you arrange them in such a way that they will make a closed cycle. So cycle is nothing but the combination of process. So any engine works on the cycle. Brayton cycle, Otto cycle, diesel cycle. And what is cycle? It contains process. So currently we are discussing Carnot cycle. So Carnot cycle will have some process. So it has two types of process. Carnot cycle. Two thermal and two adiabatic. All these four processes will combine together to make a cycle. So if you will draw your PV diagram, then first we have reversible isothermal expansion process. Reversible isothermal and expansion. What is reversible, what is isothermal, what is expansion, and all together what kind of process it will make. Reversible means there is no friction, no loss, nothing. It is kind of ideal process. Isothermal means you have to keep your temperature constant, and expansion means volume should increase. So only this kind of line is possible. Earlier you were at P1 V1, now you are going to P2 V2, and this line is T is equal to constant line. like already we have done our isothermal line. So now you have to draw your next process, that is again expansion like this, but that is adiabatic expansion, and of course reversible. So now next process is reversible adiabatic expansion. So you go for this line, because you know slope of adiabatic is more, so another curve will not be like this, because next one is adiabatic. In adiabatic, heat transfer is 0 and n is equal to gamma. Already we have practiced this. So you will reach here. So suppose you are reaching to P3V3. Then again you have to apply reversible isothermal compression. Reversible isothermal compression. Two process over. Now third process. Reversible means same, isothermal temperature constant, but compression. So volume should increase. So you can see whatever line is here, same line is here, but direction is like this, direction is like this. In this, volume is increasing like here, but in this, volume is decreasing. Okay. And then the last process is going to be reversible adiabatic and again compression, because from here again the volume will decrease. So you can check, one volume is here, that is V1, then second volume is here, that is V2, then third volume is here, that is V3, then fourth volume is here, that is V4. In same way, first pressure is here P1, then second pressure, then third pressure, and then actually it should go somewhat up like here, like this. So fourth pressure. So we got all the pressures. So whenever you have reversible adiabatic expansion, reversible adiabatic compression, so you should know their formulas. Already we have discussed. You should know whenever there is a isothermal process, what is heat formula, what is work done formula, and these things we have discussed already in our previous chapters. So we should know directly what is the efficiency of reversible Carnot engine. So see, because we are using all of the reversible cycles, so that's why this engine is a reversible engine. So we are going to discuss Carnot engine efficiency. When you talk about efficiency, this efficiency is nothing but output power by input power. So because it is an engine, so we are going to get work as our output and we are going to supply some heat. And always remember, whenever you supply heat, the entire heat will not convert into work. Some amount of heat will convert into work and remaining will go to sink. It means if you find out work done equation, so work done is nothing but Q1 minus Q2. So supply, put the values here. So W will be Q1 minus Q2 and Q1 you write as it is. Then you divide. So you'll be getting 1 minus Q2 by Q1. You can check. Your Q2 can never be 0 according to laws. Because Q2 can never be 0, so this term can never be 0. It means always your efficiency will be less than 1 because you are subtracting from 1. Efficiency can never be less than 1. It means you can never achieve 100% efficiency. Then what about Carnot engine? This formula what you are getting, it will tell you that Carnot engine is giving you maximum efficiency as compared to any other engine, but not 100% efficiency, because you have term here. Means actually you are getting efficiency is equal to 1 minus Q2 by Q1, because your Q2 can never be 0. So this term can never be 0. So this total term can never be equal to 1. So it is always less than 1. So your efficiency is always less than 1, means less than 100%. But if you compare with some other engine in real life, they are not reversible. So their efficiency will never be equal to the Carnot efficiency. Okay. So Carnot efficiency you can write in terms of temperatures. How? Because you know your heat supply is nothing but constant MR T2. Q2 you can write as MR T2, ln of the ratio. You remember we have done this equation. In same way, Q1 also you can write as MR T1 ln R. If you are missing the previous classes, videos you watch and you revise. So because this ln R will get cancelled if you divide. Substitute here and divide. This will get cancelled. MR will get cancelled. T2 by T1 will come. So you can write 1 by T2 by T1. So this efficiency you can write in terms of temperature. So see, whenever you are writing efficiency in terms of heat, that is one formula. But if the same formula you will convert in terms of temperature, then it will give you maximum efficiency. So my point is, if you are writing efficiency formula in terms of 1 minus Q2 by Q1, then this formula you can use for any engine. But if you want to write efficiency formula for Carnot engine, then you are going to write efficiency for Carnot engine is going to be efficiency maximum, but that in terms of temperature, T2 by T1. Whenever you replace your heat values in terms of temperature, you get maximum efficiency, which is not possible practically, but theoretically it is possible. And what is your T2 and what is your T1? Your T2 is your sink, it means minimum temperature, and T1 is your source, it is maximum temperature. So we have some theory about Carnot engine. That theory I will give you in PDF. I mean about some reservoir and something. It is very easy theory, kind of history. So now we have something to compare with. Suppose you have any engine. Suppose you are talking about heat pump, and you have another heat pump which is reversible. What is difference between a basic heat pump and the reversible heat pump? So first thing, when you talk about reversible, it is impossible, because in real life you cannot decrease the, you cannot make friction zero. You can decrease, but you cannot make friction zero. So you can never achieve reversible. So whenever you talk about the reversible heat pump, it will be having efficiency maximum, but not 100%. But if you bother about the basic heat pump, which is practically possible, this heat pump efficiency will be less than this heat pump, reversible. So you can say that if you have reversible heat pump and coefficient of performance of reversible heat pump is more than coefficient of performance of normal heat pump, then it is correct, because you are using reversible. But if you say that this normal heat pump and the reversible heat pump, they both are giving same coefficient of performance, it means the normal heat pump is nothing but the reversible heat pump. Okay, how will you judge any device? Suppose I am giving any heat pump, and by using formula you got the efficiency. So if first thing, in case of heat pump and refrigerator, we don't say efficiency, we say coefficient of performance. So coefficient of performance you have got. So there are three chances what kind of answer you will get. Either your coefficient of performance will be less than the coefficient of performance of a reversible heat pump. Why it is less? Because in real life we have irreversibility, friction and other things are involved. Other chance is equal to, which is not possible, because it is, this guy is ideal guy. Or another chance is your real heat pump will give you more efficiency than your this heat pump, reversible heat pump, which is totally impossible. Totally impossible. It means always you will be having this problem that theoretically your heat pump is giving you this much efficiency, but not efficiency, coefficient of performance. But in real life, when you are designing heat pump and you are using heat pump and when you are using efficiency, then this coefficient of performance will be less. This one is ideal because it is reversible. This is real. So this coefficient of pressure gap will be there. So there is something called relative coefficient of performance of heat pump. That is nothing but the actual coefficient of performance you divide by the reversible So you'll be getting relative. So coefficient of performance of actual heat pump divided by coefficient of performance of reversible heat pump. What is reversible? Reversible means that is kind of theoretical, without the involvement of friction and those things, like God made, but we are talking about man made. In same way, you have a comparison between refrigerators. So I will give you the chart, you can read the chart. And now point comes where we should understand reversibility, irreversibility. Already we have discussed reversibility, irreversibility, but because we are very close to entropy, so we will discuss entropy now. And that's all. In the second law, we discussed some machines and we discussed some theories, and then we compared relative and real and those things. That's all. In the theories, mainly we have to discuss KPS and CS. KPS you should recall and CS also you should recall. I will give you the PDF. And now our job is to solve some numericals. So total how many examples I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. Total 10 examples I have. Those 10 examples I will send you in PDF so that you can solve all the 10 examples. So now should I continue or we can stop today? What do you say? Guys, enough? Okay then. So I'll send the PDFs and with